Hi, I'm Krista Redpath, and you are listening to Where Are They Now, a summer podcast series brought to you by Krista Redpath Media, where we break down the game, elevate the story, and champion the female voice.
A wonderful interview to share with you. A familiar face, familiar name, both around the state of Montana and on this radio show, but a new lens into him. Our Where Are They Now guest is Josh Huestis. It's been really fun to reconnect with him. I did not know Josh when we were kids, other than I watched him play basketball every weekend for basically my entire life because he's the exact same age as my brother, and the Great Falls Elite team was always playing the Missoula team in the AAU tournaments. And so I watched Josh as he progressed and matured, and then obviously was so proud of him as a fellow Montanan from afar, watching him first go to Stanford, play in multiple NCAA tournaments, and then get drafted in the first round of the NBA draft and play for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Ended up playing professionally for, I think, 8 or 9 years, and it was always fun to follow his career. He's since then moved back to Montana, and he's working in Bozeman. He has a foundation. He does some individual training, and he's doing as much as anybody I can tell to give back to the state of Montana from the basketball angle. So it's fun catching up with him. Thoughts from you on Josh? This was a wonderful conversation. You're a Great Falls girl. He's a Great Falls guy. But I think he's done a great job of a lot of things, but really sort of trying to provide opportunities for young people in the state through the game of basketball.
Well, obviously, I'm so proud that Josh is from Great Falls, obviously my hometown, and what he did with his career, obviously having a lot of success at Stanford, finished as the number 1 shot blocker, number 8 in rebounds. He was a 1,000-point scorer. In 2014, he was part of the all-pack defensive team. He actually just did some phenomenal things, scored in double figures 19 times, but also led his team to the Sweet 16. I mean, that's the last time Stanford's been back in the NCAA tournament, was back in 2014. So I think you look at him from a collegiate standpoint, but then being able to elevate and actually get drafted. I mean, Coulter
in the first round.
That's a phenomenal right there.
It's
we just don't see that. And so around the state of Montana, and boy, I mean, he certainly had a very storied career, and being able to come back and give back to our state. I mean, he's just touched so many lives in different parts of our state, working the Josh Huestis camps that he puts on throughout the state, his foundation, starting his training business, MEI. Like you said, there's just so many things that Josh has done to put his leadership mark on our state, and I think that's incredibly giving and also admirable.
It absolutely is. And we can all sit around and grumble about the lack of exposure for Montana high school basketball players, especially on the boys' side of things. The girls are garnering big-time exposure now, and I think that's awesome. We've seen a real tipping point. But, throughout so many years, there's always been, oh, you remember that guy? Yeah, and he only went to Montana Western. How did that guy not get a chance? Well, that's what Josh is doing. Rather than just mumble and groan about it, he's doing something about it. He's making this MEI, this Montana Elite Invitational, for people to get seen, to get their names out there, to elevate their recruiting. He's coaching his own AAU team, or at least he has in the past. He's training kids. So he's giving back in the highest regard. The one thing I would encourage people about Josh Huestis, Montana forever was a basketball state. Then it became a football state over the last 30 or so years. So much of that's because of the Grizz and their awesome rise to national prominence. The way that's then helped buoy the Cats, and then the Montana State has then even taken it to another level, and now they're both, amongst the 2 top teams in the entire country at the FCS level. And there's been so many great stories of Montana guys that have played at the Montana schools, and those guys get so much attention and so much love. And this is no disrespect to any of those guys. Nobody's a first-round draft pick out of Montana. I mean, this is unprecedented.
I mean, think about Joel Embiid and Marcus Smart. They were also first-round picks, the same exact class.
Yes.
So let's just put that into perspective right there.
100%. I mean,
first round.
You're talking like, on one hand, you can count the amount of guys from Montana that have gotten drafted in the NBA, let alone in the first round. It's like Wayne Estes and Josh Huestis, and that is it. So for as admired and revered as he is, I hope people understand this guy is one of the most special athletes and one of the most special people that's ever come out of the state of Montana. Our conversation with Josh Huestis and our entire Where Are They Now series this summer, presented by Ryan and Miller Law. Ryan and Miller Law is a law firm specializing in personal injury and criminal defense. The firm handles cases across the state of Montana and focuses in specific areas of law to ensure they provide their clients with the best representation. Their firm proudly handles automobile accidents, medical malpractice claims, wrongful death claims, DUIs, and criminal charges. Find them online, ryanmillerlaw.com. Josh Huestis.
Well, Where Are They Now continues, but this is somebody we actually know exactly where he is right now. We've talked to him a little bit, but we want to elaborate on it a little bit more and also sort of connect the dots. How do we get to this point? How do we get to the point where Josh Huestis is doing so much for the state of Montana? He's got a great history in the state of Montana. So Josh Huestis, former Stanford and NBA basketball player, our guest, and a guy who, if you've been paying attention here on Nuanez Now, headed up the Josh Huestis Foundation, the Montana Elite Invitational, and most of the time when he's on, we're talking about the here and now, the contemporary world of high school hoops. But Josh, for those that maybe haven't heard you before, just set this up for us. I mean, tell people what you're up to, where you're at, and what you're doing right now in the here and now.
Thanks for having me back on. It's been kind of a whirlwind getting to where I'm at right now. Obviously, I retired from playing about 2 years ago. And then from there, I just kind of was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And, for so long, basketball had been all I had done, right? My first job I ever had was in the NBA. It was my first paycheck I ever was because everything I did revolved around basketball and getting to professionally, to be able to professionally play. And when it ended, I was kind of in this place where I was like, man, I don't really know what it is that I want to do now. And, at the time I had my son, and my wife and I were just talking. We were like, it could be a great opportunity for us to move back to Montana and be closer to family, as well as, try to give back on the basketball side to Montana. And I had this dream for a couple of years leading up to that about, hosting the Montana Elite Invitational and also getting into some training and trying to pass on the lessons that I learned throughout my basketball career, because there's a lot of things that I wasn't taught until I got to college or even to the NBA that I think I could help pass on to kids within the state that can help, kind of connect the dots, because there's a ton of talent here, right? It's never been a question of talent with the Montana players. It's a matter of teaching them to play the right way, teaching them to play the modern game. And unfortunately, the way things are currently, I've always said that Montana is about 10 years behind when it comes to basketball. And I'm trying to help, catch the state up a little bit. And so we moved to Bozeman and have been here for just over a year now. And I'm doing the Montana Elite Invitational. I run my foundation, the Josh Huestis Foundation, as well as run a training business called Echo Sports Training here locally, as well as I travel around the state and host camps. And it's been, like I said, a whirlwind, but it's been super exciting and super fun. I feel like I'm finally starting to get my feet under me a little bit, headed into year 2, but it's been awesome. I've really, really enjoyed it so far.
Josh, can you take us back to the beginning in your childhood days in Great Falls? I know, being a former Great Falls Bison, we have a little bit of a rivalry going between CMR and Great Falls High, but just talk about your time in Great Falls. And do you have some favorite hoop memories, or when you really fell for basketball at a young age?
That's a great question. I mean, I have so many fond memories of growing up in Great Falls. So my family, and they still live in the same house. We lived out in Ulm, so out in the country. And I remember, being the kid who was dribbling on the gravel driveway, playing basketball. And then we finally got a paved driveway when I was like 13 years old, and then just shooting over and over and over outside. And that was, really where I kind of fell in love with it, as well as I think a lot of kids do, and I'm sure you all remember the days of being a kid of, I would create scenarios in my head. Oh, Josh Huestis, 3 seconds left, down by 2. You know what I mean? Those things, and just imagining that.
With my rubber Larry Bird basketball in my driveway.
Yeah, exactly.
Driveway on 49th Street in Great Falls, Josh.
Yep. And I have a very specific memory of being a little kid and thinking to myself and playing in my head, the NBA draft and hearing my name called. And I remember, I would do these jumping workouts to try to increase my vertical in my driveway, which probably wasn't the smartest thing on concrete, but I didn't know any better. I just wanted to get better, and I just wanted to play basketball. And, I have such fond memories of just kind of the, I guess you could call it grassroots, basketball, playing on a gravel road, playing, on my outdoor hoop in the wind, in the rain, and, trying to reach under a car because my ball rolled too far and now it's stuck under one of our cars. Like those things, like that is just to me the purest form of it, and where I really fell in love with the game. As well as, showing up to CMR games. And I remember watching, older players and just being starstruck by these guys, starstruck by the players that were older than me. I still to this day, like, despite all the playing that I've done, the places that I've played, the people that I've met, if I ever have a chance to meet these CMR players that were there before me that I remember watching, I still kind of get a little starstruck, right? I still feel those same feelings from being a middle school, elementary school kid, seeing these players, like, and, that's, for me, nothing was bigger to me than being a varsity basketball player for the Wrestlers, and then once I did that, it was all I wanted to do was play college. And then after college, it was all I wanted to do was play professionally. And, those dreams drove me to work really, really hard. And I still to this day love being in Great Falls. In fact, I was just there 2 days ago. Like I go all the time, and it's so awesome to just be able to go back there and to relive those memories.
Are there any special spots in Great Falls that you like to visit? I mean, I know I like to go back to Giant Springs. I think that's so pretty. The Missouri River. Are there any eateries that you like to go to, Josh, back in Great Falls?
Well, first, it's funny you mentioned Giant Springs because whenever we go to town, we take my son there because I always really enjoyed going there. And then we take my 3-year-old son there because he loves to feed the fish at the hatchery. And so he loves to do that. And there's a playground there. And it's cool to be able to be there with him because I remember being there and I would just go for walks there when I was growing up, and to be able to share that with him and show him the places that I was. Taking him to CMR was pretty cool for me because there's, my picture and my jersey up in a few different places, and to be able to like walk him around there and say like, hey, look at this, buddy. Like, that's me up there. And to be able to share that with him and kind of talk to him about my time there, feels really good because, again, it just feels like yesterday that I was just a kid in those halls. But as far as eateries go, I have to go to Mongolian Barbecue, the one by Target.
Okay.
That is probably my absolute go-to in Great Falls, as well as, and I'm not sure if you've been there yet. It's not really like old school because it's new, but the Rib and Chop House, the new one downtown in Great Falls.
I like it. It's something outside of Taco Treat.
Yeah, I do love Taco Treat. I'm not going to lie. I love Taco Treat and Best Walk, Howard's, the Great Falls.
All the spots. So, Josh, you have 2 young children now, and so you're also involved on the opposite end with Echo Sports Training. So how important is it to set that foundation when these kids are younger with the right type of training? And you're going to be doing this as a dad. I coached my kids. Now they're teenagers and they're off to high school, so I no longer am coaching them. But how important is laying that foundation when they're young?
It is incredibly important, and it is all about balance. Speaking on what you mentioned earlier, Coulter, with like the toxic nature of AAU, I'm a firm believer that so many kids are being worn thin too early with this game. I love basketball so much, and it was so great to me, but kids, and I do this, they should fall in love with the game first. Right, finding ways to teach the fundamentals in an enjoyable way that doesn't burn them out, because it's the way it is now. Is basketball is a year-round sport from the time you are starting at 6 years old, and so many of these kids are pushed into just playing games. One of the big things that I've heard just on the professional side, and you see it, is the best players in the world right now are non-American. If you look at, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Canada, and Jokic and Doncic and Antetokounmpo, you look at all these, and Embiid, because they have been taught the right way to play the game from a young age, rather than putting emphasis on play. And so for me, what I'm really trying to instill is how to play the game in the right way and teach the fundamentals the right way, in a fun way that makes you fall in love with the game first. Because what good is doing all this work if by the time they get to high school, they don't even enjoy it anymore because it's all they've been allowed to do. I'm a firm believer that falling in love with it is just going to take them even further, because then they're going to actually want to do it. I've seen it too many times, and I saw it with myself. the burnout can happen and it becomes more of a job than it should be at such a young age. Like, let them enjoy the game first. And that's what I really try to instill is how can I make these training sessions fun and informational while also just instilling the love for the game first, because like I said, it's never been a question about talent for these kids from Montana. They are talented and they can play. They just need to be taught how to play the correct way. And so I'm trying to help that along a little bit. And I'm still learning. There's a ton of that I don't know. There's a ton that I'm still trying to figure out and the right ways to do it. I've made a bunch of mistakes in it, but it has been a truly enjoyable thing, and I've loved every minute of it.
You know, you say that it's all about fun. I look at that, and I mean, I fell in love with the game of basketball in my driveway, and just myself, just having, you know, making up my own fun games. And I tried to do that with my kids too by playing pig or horse out in the driveway, just creating some moments where you do have fun. Because you're right, as soon as you get into these games and you're chasing that all the time, what result are you really ultimately looking to accomplish? Because there is burnout. And you look at us and our longevity, we still want to stay connected to the game because it's a game that's given us so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the emphasis too often is placed on the destination rather than the journey. And so trying to make the journey more enjoyable, and because, you know, the honest thing is that 1% of these kids will play in college and 0.0001% of them will play after college. So how can we make that journey fun for them so they look back on it fondly rather than look back on it and think of it as, oh, that was work, right? It should be something that they enjoy.
Josh Huestis, Great Falls product, former NBA player, our guest on our Where Are They Now with Crystal Redpath. It's proudly presented by Ryan and Miller. Ryan and Miller Law truly cares about this community. I just saw this on their social media, which, by the way, Angie Miller does a great job with their social media, but they are doing one of their regular traditions that they do every single year right now, right?
Backpacks.
The backpacks, which is so cool. Backpacks with school supplies for families in need. And I mean, it's just awesome. Like, it's such a simple thing, but something that could just completely help somebody out. And they do it for hundreds of people, which is so awesome. The list is over 100 local organizations that they give to annually. And not just great lawyers, also great members of the Missoula and the Montana communities. Ryan and Miller Law, your Montana attorneys. More with Josh Huestis.
Has great basketball tradition too, but it's the football that everybody talks about. There's so many athletes though from Montana that were multi-sport guys that were getting pulled in a lot of directions. Even guys from like your class, right? Like Brock Osweiler could have gone for basketball or football. Matt Miller, I think he's probably a year younger than you, but either way, I mean,
Matt was my year. Yeah, Matt was my year. Yeah,
sure, and he could have probably played either one.
For sure.
So often, guys in Montana choose the football route, but you were never really called by the football route, right? I mean, you were always all basketball all the time. So, what was it like, kind of chasing basketball dreams in like this football world?
It's interesting you should ask that. So, I played football my whole life, and then I stopped after my sophomore year of high school because here I was, this gangly kid who. I played tight end, and the entire third and long, it was throw it up to Josh and let him go get it. And all I could see happening was me just getting, clobbered by some linebacker. And then there goes my basketball dreams. And so I knew there was never a question to me that I wanted to be a college basketball player. Like football was never something that I thought of for myself. And so I made the decision. I was like, I know what I want to do. And so I decided to step away from the football side. But it was difficult, right? It was difficult because part of the thing that with football is the camaraderie, right? Like all of my friends played football, so I missed out on that. But to be completely honest, like the biggest thing, and I hear it from players that I work with here, is that on the weightlifting side and the weight training side, everything that I did, because they offer weight training through CMR, like they have the class, they have extra weightlifting stuff. Every strength and conditioning thing that I did through the school was catered 100% towards football. Right. It was bench press. It was back squats. It was power cleans, dips, pull. It was all these things that, as great as they are for football, they do not translate whatsoever to the basketball side. And so stepping out of that was difficult. I had to find this alternate route to be able to still train my body. And luckily, I worked through the Peak in Great Falls and through the results program that they have there at the Peak, which is fantastic. And that kind of helped me shift more towards that basketball side, because I tell kids all the time, like they are two completely different things, right? Football players, basketball players, they train completely differently. And football training is fantastic for the football side, but you're missing so much for the basketball side. It's totally different. And for me, I just felt myself kind of being handicapped by that, having to train like a football player when I knew all I wanted to do was play basketball, and stepping away from football. And even I stepped away from track and field as well. Those opened up just more training and time opportunities for me to focus on what it is I knew I wanted to do, because I had my mind made up since I was 6 years old that I was going to be a basketball player. And I was willing to do absolutely anything to make that happen.
You mentioned dreaming about being a CMR athlete first and foremost, right? And that's such a distinctly common thing in Montana, but it's like sort of, it's not, I should say absent, but it's not nearly as common in Missoula or Bozeman, because in Missoula or Bozeman, you just skip the high school part, right? You just say, I want to be a Grizz. I want to be a Bobcat, right? So how do you sort of compare and contrast those two things, though, now, especially now that you're working in Bozeman? Because it seems like the first most attainable goal would be a Gallatin High Raptor or a Bozeman Hawk, right? It's a little more attainable than saying, I'm going to go play for the Cats or I'm going to go play in the NBA.
Yeah, it's totally different to be. I mean, like you said, in Missoula, everybody's, I want to be a Grizz. It's a lot of the same here. I want to be a Cat. Go Cats. Like I want to play at MSU. And but I try to remind kids, like, to get there, you have to take that first stop, right? You need to take care of business in high school. And one of the things that I learned and I regret and wish I would have done more of is really focus on where I was at the present time. Like, really enjoy these moments, the 4 years of high school, the 4 years of college, because those things go by really quickly. And if you're always looking too far ahead rather than where you are, you can miss out on a ton of things. And to me, I try to remind kids, like, oh, you want to be a Cat? Well, then you have to take care of business as a Raptor, or you need to take care of business as a Hawk first. Those things need to happen in order for you to get to the level that you want to get to. And as fantastic of a dream as that is, like, you should really enjoy your time as a Raptor or as a Hawk, because, like, I've played at some incredible levels. I've played in Madison Square Garden, Staples Center. I've played, all over the world. And one of the things I always tell people is, if I could go back and play in any gym with any group of people, I would pick to play at CMR with my high school teammates one more time. Like, that's what I would pick, because those were the kids that I played with from 3rd grade all the way through 12th grade. My best friends, played hundreds of games together, who I spent all my time with. And, as fantastic and amazing as that was, there were definitely a lot of times where I was so concerned with getting to college and then getting to the NBA that I missed out on those moments and didn't, and I probably took them for granted. So I try to, remind people, be where your feet are, enjoy the present moment. Like, be excited about being a Raptor, be excited about being a Hawk, because, and it's hard to tell kids this, it gets a lot harder. Like, these are going to be the 4 easiest years of your life. Like, enjoy them. Don't take them for granted. So, but yeah, trying to instill that. But obviously with kids, it's tough. Kids are always head in the clouds, which is part of what made me get to where I am, because I was always thinking ahead. But sometimes it's okay to stop and focus on where you're at and be excited for what's around you.
Josh, growing up in Great Falls, I look at that rivalry between CMR and Great Falls High. And what was really special rivalry is there were only 2 schools in Great Falls. So when you look at that, we had tons of fans that we played for our high school, more so than around the state. We had the Great Falls Tribune front page of the paper for our games. And so to me, I went and played for the Lady Grizz. I played in a lot of fans, but I also played in front of sellouts in the field house and over at CMR as a high school player. And so when you look at that, speak a little bit to that rivalry and what that was like to just be the main game in town.
It was huge. Growing up in Great Falls, you remember this, it was all about crosstown, like the crosstown games. They were enormous on the basketball side, especially. Like, my parents still tell me the story of playing. And again, like you mentioned, like, Great Falls is interesting because it's just those 2. Right, you just got those 2, and there's no like Division I college team. It's all about the Rustlers and the Bison. And my parents tell stories about the games being, and CMR has a big parking lot. Like, they've got a lot of parking space. It's a huge space for they can hold a lot of people. And my parents still tell me stories about them struggling to find parking at CMR, and it being standing room only at those games. And when I played, and the support was incredible, and there really was nothing like it. Like, I still remember running out onto the court and hearing the music, and I remember looking over and seeing the student section of blue and white on one side and the green and gold on another. And it was just so funny to me, because it's like, other than that game, everybody was friends on either side, because we had grown up with each other. Like, everybody knew one another. It's not a big town. But the minute that game started, it was just back and forth, just yelling and screaming at each other. And it was just no holds barred competition for bragging rights. And the Bison got me. We split with the Bison my sophomore year, but then my junior and senior year never let them get close. So that's why I called it a rivalry.
Okay. I ended up beating him my senior year, but I lost to him a lot of times before that. So.
But yeah, there's a lot of good memories in that crosstown game. It's funny, my two best friends in the world right now are both former Bison. So that's just how it works. But during those games, we were not buddies.
Crosstown. One of the great things in Montana. It's always a little weird for us in Missoula, because there's like 3 crosstowns. It's like, who's your rival? You know, like big.
Always clear in Great Falls. Who our rival was.
Very clear in Great Falls. Very clear. I mean, it used to be no crosstown in Kalispell, but it's very clear in Great Falls. Very clear in Helena.
Yes,
no doubt. At the end of the year, football. You know who you're playing. Same thing with basketball is great.
And Josh talks about being friends with, we did have commonalities. We did have friends on either side, but when we played them, we were not friends.
No doubt. Or Where Are They Now? Presented by Ryan and Miller Law. Let's hear from Angie Miller from Ryan and Miller.
Angie, in today's world of ever-changing economy, finances are never far from anyone's mind. It's just it's the way it is, and it's especially that way for professional services. How much does it cost to talk to you?
So actually, to talk to us and get a consultation, no matter what your case is, it's absolutely free. That's really the beauty of our job, that we can help people, give them some guidance, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything. For personal injury, medical malpractice, it's actually, you never pay anything to us. If we get a settlement or a judgment or a verdict for you, then we get a portion of that, but otherwise you're not paying us any money. So it's really helpful to prospective clients.
Ryan Miller, your Montana attorneys. More with Josh Huestis right now.
I did have a discussion with my mother, who was your 7th grade math teacher on the Dynamo team. And so I have to say, is that when your dreams of Stanford started? Was it the recruiting process? Were you getting looked at by multiple schools and Stanford just won you over?
It's funny because my brother, who was adopted into a separate family than me, he was raised in Palo Alto. And so there are a lot of pictures of me as a kid wearing Stanford gear, because when they would come visit, they would bring Stanford clothes. And so there's tons of pictures of me wearing Stanford Cardinal stuff. And to be honest, my dream school, my absolute dream school, was North Carolina. I wanted to be a Tar Heel more than anything. And I got to play in front of Roy Williams exactly one time, and I played terrible. And so that's when that dream left. But the summer before my senior year, playing AAU is kind of when it really took off for me. Like, up to that point, I had been recruited a lot by, mid-majors, some WCC schools, the Big Sky Conference. But then going into my senior year is when I started getting calls from places like USC and Georgetown, Gonzaga, Stanford, Harvard, the bigger schools. And it became super exciting to me, because I knew that those were, especially when I was looking at like the Pac-10 at the time, like that was, and it's, rest in peace to the Pac-12, but it was the Conference of Champions, right? And that was, with UCLA and USC and Washington and Arizona, all these great schools. And my parents always really instilled in me the importance of school, right? Because they really pushed on me that, nothing is guaranteed. Eventually the ball stops bouncing for everybody, no matter what level you get to. And for me, I was fortunate enough to play 8 years professionally, but I retired at 31. Like, that is, that's young. Like, I've got a lot of life left to live, and I had planned for that. And so Stanford to me was the best of both worlds. And it really sealed the deal when I went on my visit there and saw just how beautiful the campus is. I'm not sure if any of you have been there, but lined with palm trees. I mean, it's perpetually like 70, 75 degrees there. Like, it's just gorgeous. And I fell in love with the Bay Area, and I fell in love with the basketball and my teammates. And it was just this best of both worlds scenario for me, because I was like, I get to play basketball at the highest level, as well as set myself up for a future where when I eventually do stop playing, like I have options and I can do things, and it opens a ton of doors for me. And I'm blessed to have been able to spend 4 years there, and I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Josh, I've had a great time looking back at all your blog posts over the years. So through the lens and also more than the game, what was your inspiration to put those thoughts to paper and share those personal experiences?
I mean, it's no surprise to people because I've talked about it that I've had my fair share of struggles with, anxiety, depression, things like that throughout my life, not just my career. And, on one hand, it was a good outlet for me to be able to share what I was going through in terms of it was almost like cathartic to be able to write it down, because I'm not talking about it has always been difficult for me. And so writing just kind of seemed like a more natural way for me to put feelings out there. And then, I had been a big journaler and it was just for me. And then it came to this point where I was like, I could do good by sharing this with other people. Because for more than half my life now, everybody I feel like has viewed me as somebody who's had it all together and everything goes right. And I always, I never struggle. There's no issues going on. I shouldn't be I've got everything going for me. Right. And just wanted to share that despite all those things, despite all the things you can have going for you, that, I'm human just like anybody else. And sometimes people unfortunately need permission to feel okay to struggle. Right. Somebody needs to tell them that it's okay to not be okay. Right. That pretty popular saying. And, if I could share that, as uncomfortable as it is for me to speak on, because I still have those times where I'm like, what do I have to complain about? Right. I've got all these things, everything that I've ever wanted has come true. And what do I have to complain about? But I try to remind myself and remind people that saying that you have no reason to be happy or no reason to be sad because other people have it worse. That's the same thing as saying that I shouldn't be happy because other people have it better. That's not a thing. You feel how you feel. Right. And I only know my own experiences. And if, I feel a certain way, then I have every right to feel that way. And by sharing that with other people and helping almost give permission to other people that it's okay to not be okay, I feel is a responsibility of mine, because I always said that if you are blessed enough like myself to have a platform that people want to listen to you, you have a responsibility to do something with it. I think that's one of the reasons I was put on this earth, was that to, use my platform to try to help, even if it's one person, 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever it is. I think everybody on earth has a responsibility to leave the world better than they found it. And this is my little way of trying to do it. Like I said, it's uncomfortable at times, but growth requires discomfort. And so that's what I'm working through and trying to always continue to do that, for the rest of my life.
Did these challenges and experiences lead you to found your foundation? Is that where the inspiration came from?
Yeah, I mean, partially, one of the big things for me was thinking about myself as a kid and trying to imagine who I needed as a kid, who I wished I would have had to look to as a kid, and try to be that for other people, whether that's through basketball training, whether that's through speaking, whether that's through mentorship, whatever it is, right? Because there were definitely times I wished, on the basketball side, I had somebody to look to as a beacon of, or an example of how to get where I wanted to go. And then there was on the personal side, I wish I would have had somebody who I could look to say, I'm hurting, I need help. Do you have advice for me? How can I be like you? And so I try to be that for especially kids in Montana, because I still, despite being 32 years old, still many times feel like that same kid, right? One of the things I've learned becoming an adult is I still feel like, you don't feel like one, I still feel like a kid. I feel like the mark of being an adult is when you finally realize that you're never going to actually figure it out. And you're just going to make it up every day for the rest of your life, pretty much. And so trying to help people as much as I can and trying to pass on any wisdom that I've gained. Obviously, I do not know a ton, but there's things that I've learned that I want to help other people with. And like I said, it's my responsibility to try to pass that on.
there seemed like, I don't know when, but there seemed like there was a shift where people decided that the ultimate goal for playing high school sports was to play sports after high school. And if by chance you did that, then you accomplished something. And if you didn't, then that's a disappointment. That seems like an unattainable dynamic to me, right? I mean, I had no aspirations of playing anything beyond varsity basketball. I'm only 6'1", so I knew it wasn't happening for me. But like, is there a way to sort of come back to the beginning and say, hey, getting a varsity letter is an impressive thing. It's not just about going to, Division I. You can have a great basketball career without actually ever playing in college.
Well, I think it's something to be said with the current state of social media. I think plays a really, really important role in that, is because these athletes, not only are they seeing other players within the state to compare themselves to, now they have access to what is every player in the country doing. What is this 17-year-old from Florida doing? What is this 17-year-old from Iowa doing and from New York? And how do I match up with them? How do I compare with them? They're better than me, so that makes me a failure, when that's just not the case, right? Like that's not how we measure our success or failures, right? Like that's just it's unrealistic. There will always be somebody better. There will always be somebody more talented. And having access to that much information is a gift and a curse. I think that the levels of comparison are a real problem. I see it all the time, and I hear from coaches all the time that so many athletes right now have if it's not D1, I don't care mentality, which is just unfortunate, because to be able to play college basketball or college athletics at any level is incredible. To be a varsity athlete is incredible, right? Like that in and of itself is an accomplishment. But because of the comparison, right? And it's not only the kid's fault, it's, adults' faults of overly celebrating the ones that make it D1, really giving the attention to the ones who are the starters versus the ones that come off the bench. That has a ripple effect on the mentality that these kids face, where it's okay. And I see it at my camps all the time. It's unfortunate, but it's this: if I'm not going to be the best, then I'm the failure. I mean, it's the old, like, Ricky Bobby thought process. If I'm not first, then I might as well be last.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but I see it all the time with these kids in competitions at my camps. And I get after them, where it's like, just because you don't think you're going to win doesn't mean you can't try. All the time, I've had kids come up to me and they're so afraid of failing that they'd rather not try. When it should be more of, our success should be hinged on our efforts rather than our results. And I tell that to kids that I train. I say effort over perfection every single time. Every single time, because one you can control, one you can't. And so I think it's on us as adults and coaches and mentors and leaders, parents, whatever it is, to try to continue to instill that, because there's room for everybody to be a success. Just because somebody is a success in the same area as you doesn't mean you're a failure, right? Like, that's just not the way that the world works. There's room for everybody to be successful. There's room for everybody to follow their dreams. And we run our own races. That was probably the best advice that I ever got in college, was from my college coach, who told me to run my own race, because I was constantly comparing myself to my teammates. At the end of the day, I view your life should almost be like a horse with blinders on. You just see what's in front and you just take care of your business, and wherever you end up, that's where you end up. And as long as you know that you gave it your all, you can be happy with that, because the regret of knowing you could have given more, I promise nobody wants to feel that down the road.
Where Are They Now? Presented by Ryan and Miller Law. Josh Huestis, we've been hearing from him, but let's hear about, first, a wonderful memory of his, and then next, what he thinks of one of our common themes of the summer.
I was just wondering if you had any vivid memories of being on the court, like a game or even just a moment that you could just take us through.
The biggest one for me, I would probably say, was, and it still is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite memory on the court, was when we won in the NCAA tournament to make it to the Sweet 16. And I remember the buzzer going off. We had just beat Kansas, who was a 2 seed. And they had Andrew Wiggins was on the team, Joel Embiid. Like, this was a team that was picked by a lot of people to win the entire thing. And I remember just like looking around in that moment and just being almost speechless because I my senior year of high school went to the Sweet 16 with some friends, and I almost had to pinch myself because obviously I always wanted my dreams to come true, but the moments that it did, it almost felt like I have to be dreaming. This can't possibly be real, right? Because again, I was like, I'm just the kid that grew up in Ulm, Montana, who is here doing this, like playing a game that I love in front of a nation of people, accomplishing my dreams. And I remember just being on the court, and it's a funny story, actually. My cousin rushed, we were in St. Louis. My cousin rushed the court after we beat Kansas, and he was the only person who rushed the court, and he ended up getting arrested and spent the rest of the day in a holding cell in St. Louis. It was a whirlwind of a day, but like, it honestly felt like I was watching somebody else's life through a lens at that moment, because it had just seemed to be such a big thing that it couldn't possibly be real, and let alone that it was happening to me was magic, and I'll never forget that moment.
Did you ever forget that moment? Playing the Sweet 16, or even winning a game to go to the Sweet 16. Pretty darn impressive. Josh Huestis, our guest here on Where Are They Now? One of our common themes from the summer. Krista asked Josh about that.
So a theme, Josh, of our show this summer has, and I know now that you're a girl dad, we definitely want to get your opinion of this. You got a little one, but the theme of our summer series has been to discuss and dialogue the Caitlin Clark effect, which has just, the trajectory of it has really made it so women's basketball is in dining room conversations around the world, actually. Can you talk a little bit about this movement and what your perspective is looking at it as a professional athlete?
It is extremely exciting, especially now being a girl dad, like you mentioned, because basketball is a sport that should be enjoyed by everybody and should be viewed and should be taken in as loving it for what it is, right? Loving the men's game for what the men's game is, loving the women's game for what the women's game is, and then just enjoying it for being basketball. And for the attention to now be a little bit more on the women's side of things is exciting, because they deserve it. Like, these women have worked just as hard, and they deserve the recognition, the respect, the admiration, all those things, just like anybody else. And just as the same as when I was a little kid looking for someone to look up to and to be like, so many girls haven't had that for a long time. And to now see, the Iowa Clark jerseys, or like the Reese jerseys, or just to see them look at these women and recognize that they are role models and I can be like them, is so exciting, because so often, and I see it all the time, I feel like on that girl side, they think that, it's not, basketball is just a game they play sometimes and that's it for them. It's not really that, you know what I mean? It's not boys will kill to play basketball in college. Like, you know what I mean? And for a lot of girls, I felt like it wasn't something that they saw as like a future. There wasn't something looked for as like a future, like, oh, I could do those things. Like, it's exciting. People like it. It's enjoyable. It's popular. Now they can look at that and go, wow, like, look at her. She's doing it. I want to be like that. Like, I can be that. I can look at Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese or whoever it is and say, I want to be like that one day. And I think that that's really exciting, especially because of, like you said, being a girl dad, like seeing somebody that one day my daughter can look to and model herself after, girls that I work with that they can see and say, I want to be like Caitlin Clark. I want to be like Angel Reese. I want to be like Diana Taurasi, all those things, Cameron Brink. I think it's so important, not just for the game, because a lot of these girls won't, like I said, 1% or less will play in college, but to just give them something to look to have a role model. I think that's more important than anything, that, while they are playing, to be able to look at these women and say, look at them, look at how they did it, and they're women in the space of basketball, and people love them and admire them and respect them. Like, it is such a cool opportunity for girls to be able to see and look up to now.
Do you feel like Montana girls basketball has reached a tipping point? I mean that in the best way, like that, because it seems like there's more. Krista would attest. There's always been great women's basketball players in Montana, certainly, but now, I mean, you look at like our MEI teams. You're talking like every single one of those girls is a Division I athlete. I mean, there's like 2 dozen D1 girls right now in Montana.
Yeah, women. Girls basketball in Montana is unbelievable right now. I remember watching one of the games at the MEI, and 10 players on the floor at one point, 10 girls, and I counted 8 of them that are future D1 players on the court at once. And I think that they are finally starting to get recognized in a way that is drawing coaches. Coaches are starting to see that there is talent here, and they're going out and search for them because it's been proven that there is. Right. I think on the boys' side, it just needs to get that same thing where the coaches need to see it happen a few times, and then they'll go, okay, it's there. Let's go find it. On the girls' side, it has happened. It has exploded. And I mean, you mentioned, there are countless Division I girls basketball prospects in the state. And it's a testament to the love of the game here in Montana, especially in the small towns. I think that's something that kind of goes unnoticed, is how many of those girls are from small towns. Right. You look at like Seiko, or you look at Roberts with Churich. Like, there's so many girls from these tiny towns that just love the game and are supremely talented. And I think the boys' side is in the process of catching up to that. But yeah, the girls are kind of setting the path and blazing the trail for the right way to do things, and kind of setting the example of the amount of talent that's here. It just needs to be recognized and given an opportunity.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Josh Huestis, our guest on our Where Are They Now? Proudly presented by Ryan and Miller Law. Ryan and Miller has over 40 years of experience. Their team approaches every case like it's going to trial from day one. This ensures they're always prepared and ready to press forward on their cases to get the clients the justice they deserve. Best way to reach them is by phone, 406-542-2233. They're available 24/7 by phone. That's 542-2233. You could also visit RyanMillerLaw.com. Ryan and Miller, your Montana attorneys. We got a first-round draft pick who played at Stanford and then played in the NBA. More than that, he's giving back to Montana on the highest level. Let's get right back to Josh. Just about 10 more minutes with one of the best guests we've had all summer.
Josh, you coached a 17U team this past spring and summer as a part of your Huestis Elite, I believe. Mm-hmm. And how rewarding was that to travel with this group of teenagers and watch them develop and grow?
It was unbelievable. So the idea was brought to me by Sean McEwen, who's a former coach at Rocky, and Cade Embry, so Cash Embry's father. So they came to me and they were like, hey, we want to, put a team together, and we want to play under your name. And we've got some great players that I think we could really make waves with. And so I was, really excited about it. Obviously I played AAU, and to be able to see my name on the jerseys worn by, some of the best players in the state was a pretty cool experience. And even more so, like, getting to know the kids themselves. I had known some of them through like the MEI and through training, but to be able to spend even more time with them was super rewarding. It was awesome. Like, my entire thing going into it, and I told all the parents, was like, in 10 years, none of these kids are going to remember how many games they won, how many points they scored, but they'll remember making friends with their teammates, going to dinner with the team, going to play arcade games, hanging out in the hotel, going to the pool, things like that. And so we wanted to make it a really fun experience because, again, the ball is going to stop bouncing in one day for a lot of these kids. And what they'll remember are those times. I don't remember how many points I scored or how many games I won in AAU. I remember going to dinner. I remember going to, Dave and Buster's, Chuck E. Cheese, going to amusement parks with teammates, like walking the Vegas Strip at 10 at night. Can't go in a single building, but just walking around, like, those are the things I remember. So wanted to pass that on to those kids. And we had a great AAU season. I mean, we won some big games. We ended up finishing 5th in our entire circuit, which was incredible. And being able to spend time with those kids, a couple Missoula area kids, Lincoln Rogers and Ethan Stack. That was super fun.
How do you balance because AAU has been such a huge thing in basketball for the last 25 years, and it's been such an important thing on one hand. Other people would say it's been a toxic thing in certain ways, and you see it infiltrate all the way up to the NBA and all throughout, especially the highest level Division I college basketball. How do you sort of make sure it is a positive experience? Because you guys are doing a great job of that, but I mean, how do you sort of craft that and keep out some of the the downfalls of what people maybe think of AAU?
It can be bad. I mean, there are absolutely some toxic elements to AAU. I think first and foremost, it comes down to the personalities that you put on the team, right? Montana is a super unique situation because we knew in order for us to be competitive on a national stage, we needed all the best players from the entire state. We don't have the luxury of picking players from one town or one region. We need all the best from the entire state, right? And that can be interesting because what you end up with is you get a team full of players who have been the number one option on every team they've ever played on from the time they were 6 years old to now, the time that they're 17, right? So how do you mesh that to create a team that can play together and win? And what came down to us is picking the players that not only can perform on the floor, but are just good kids, right? They're just good kids who just want to flat out win. And we did a really good job of that. I think towing that line, it's one of the things I learned in the NBA is that super teams there's been super teams in the past, they don't always win, right? And then you look at some of the best teams in history and you go, those were just good teams. Like for me, you look at the Spurs from like the late 90s, early 2000s, and you look at this as a team that they just played together and they played the right way, right? And we wanted to do something like that. We found this great mix of players who not only were incredibly skilled, but were genuinely friends with each other and just wanted to win and wanted to make it happen. And one of the things we really pushed on them is like, winners get recruited, losers do not. So if you come in here and you want to play for yourself, we will lose and you will not get recruited. If you come in here and play for the team, we will win and then we all benefit, right? And they all took that to heart and they showed up every single game and played hard. Like one of the things that made our team so great was any given night, any given game, any one of our players could be our leading scorer. Any one of our players could play the most minutes or be the leading rebounder. Any of those things is what makes us so good, what made us successful. Those were always the hardest teams for me to beat. I could beat a team that I knew they had 2 20-point scorers and everybody else was just kind of a role player. The teams that had 5 or 6 12-point scorers, those were always a nightmare because 2 of them are going to get 20 and then the other ones are going to get their 12 to 15 points. That's how our team was. They just played hard. And we told them we're never going to go into a game and out-athlete anybody. I'm sorry, that's how it was. We're not going to be strong. We're not going to be faster. We're not going to be more athletic, but we are not going to get outworked because that's the Montana way. Like we are a blue-collar team that's just going to play hard, play smart, and play together. And they really bought into it, and it's what made us successful.
Josh, I believe that the Montana Elite Invitational that you created, the MEI, that exclusive 3-day event, which features some of the best sophomores and juniors and senior basketball players in the state, has been really an awesome forum to present these stellar athletes for college recruiting. Was that your reason behind it, or was it to build cohesiveness around our state? What was your motivation for creating MEI?
You know, it was a little bit of both. For me, it really came down to during the latter couple of years of my career, I really started to think about how I can help players in my state, because to me, it's never been an issue of is there talent. These players are wildly under-recruited and undervalued. And I was trying to think of a way that we can help that. And not only that, but basketball is, unfortunately, it's not an equal opportunity sport. I can't even count how many players that I've crossed paths with who get overlooked because they can't afford to play AAU, right? Or they just go to a Class C school, so nobody takes them seriously, right? That's just unfortunately the situation that Montana kids are in. And I said to myself, like, how can we fix that? Because those are some of the same things that I went through, right? I was fortunate enough that my parents could pay for me to go to camps and play AAU, but my entire career in recruiting was, well, how good is he really? He just plays in Montana, right? How good is the competition really? And so I thought, okay, what can I put together that's going to bring the best players in one location? So for those small school kids, they now have a chance to go against the AA kids and prove themselves. And how can I get colleges to go, oh, now all these players are in one spot. Let's check them out. Because as great as Montana is in terms of the space that we have here, it is an enormous state. And I hear from colleges all the time, it is so difficult to recruit, right? It's how do you recruit in Montana when it's such a long drive from place to place, and to get to, multiple cities can be a day's drive to watch one game and then another. Like, it's just a difficult situation. So starting the MEI allowed us an opportunity to say, hey, come here. Here's all the best players right here, right now, this weekend playing against each other. You can watch them here live or live stream it. And it's free for the athletes. That's what the big thing was for me. And that's why I started my foundation, was trying to find a way to make it free for them. Because again, it's not an equal opportunity sport. And I don't think it's fair that any kid should have to miss out on an opportunity to be recruited just because of their financial situation. Because just having the opportunity to get a college education can have an effect on the rest of that family for generations to come, right? Getting a kid a college education can affect his or her kids, their kids, for generations down the line. And so being able to even just give that opportunity to one kid is what it's all about. And that's why we're going to keep doing it. We hope to keep making it bigger and better and more popular, because I think it can make a huge difference. And it's honestly the thing I look forward to most each year, because it's so much fun to watch that good basketball and to just get to know the kids.
Josh Huestis, what a guy. What an impactful person in the Montana communities, and doing great things to spread the game of basketball, but also just opportunities for young people in the state of Montana. Or Where Are They Now, presented by Ryan & Miller Law. Ryan & Miller is a law firm specializing in personal injury and criminal defense. They proudly handle cases across the board, from automobile accidents, medical malpractice claims, wrongful death claims, DUIs, and criminal charges. They have a 24/7 answering service. You can call 406-542-2233. Anytime. You can also visit online, ryanmillerlaw.com. Krista Redpath in studio with me, Colter Nuanez. To put a bow on this thing, I think that one of the things that frustrates me in the sports world more than anything is how we've created this funnel of exclusivity for youth sports. There should not be less opportunities for young people. There should be more opportunities. Like Josh was saying, it should be equal opportunity. Just because you don't have the money shouldn't mean you shouldn't be able to play basketball, especially when you're like 9 or 10 years old. I love what he's doing to try to expand that level of opportunity.
The elitism in the game is unfortunate, and you do see that, and it really does affect especially even smaller town Montana.
For sure.
You look at opportunity, and again, Josh Huestis, 32 years old, but doing so much in those 32 years, and being able to come back and move back into our state, into Bozeman, and just touching so many of these young people's lives. It's really special.